Hey everyone, this is Carbonite, and today I'm joined by Market Watch Danny.
I guess that is my title now, but yes, hello. I also go by D. Nguyen Scholar.
Stop trying to make that a thing. It's never gonna be a thing. You're gonna take
Well,
your nickname and you're gonna like it.
all right. Okay.
Anyways, today we are looking through the Bushiroad strategy presentation. Um, I definitely didn't forget to do this earlier. I was totally just waiting for the explanation PDF, guys. Anyways, you want to get into it?
Yeah, I mean, I literally told you to film your reaction, and then you said like, "Oh yeah, I forgot." So this is why we're doing this now.
Yeah. So our first slide is apparently Yu is back.
With you back, that just means we get more overdressed support,
Oh, but is it
which
gonna
is
be overdress
nice.
or is it gonna be crossover dress?
More than likely, it's just gonna be crossover dress.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. You think they'll try and go back to like the dual, like try and support both of them?
Uh, I doubt it. That felt like too gimmicky. Like at this point, I feel like they'll just have to commit to one, or they could surprise us and do like a third like new thing as well.
No shot. There's like a third overdress, bro.
Nah, but no, it is kind of exciting to get the overdress back. I played against it today actually at locals, and it still felt pretty strong, I would say.
Yeah, like it randomly just has like a bunch of custom cards, but like honestly, no one wants to play a strategy. Obviously, next announcement is that we have the vintage fight actually finally being updated in Deer Days. But I'm hoping
That
this comes with the Omniscience Awakening or whatever the new one is. Yeah, that because we're on set 4 right now in Deer Days. Oh, one more thing that I just remembered. Do you think they're gonna update the vintage ban list?
is there no ban list for vintage?
No, I don't think so. I don't think Barkle's even limited.
Then most likely not. No,
So
like
they're
this is
just gonna
like the
let.
one bone. Yeah, this is like the one bone that they give the vintage players. It's like here, and then it's like, oh, but like where else is like our ban list, and then they just dip.
If they don't update a ban list on the vintage stuff, then it's literally just like the same meta. Like, wow, nice new cards. Anyway, MLP. Oh wait, we have one more piece of news. Whoa, Token Rambo set 3. Are you not?
I don't even know what else to say. Like, I think a collective like two people are like happy about this,
Whoa,
or
I'm
like
one
or
of
even like
them.
wanting about this. Okay, a collective like three. Like I saw this and it was like I was disappointed, but I'm not surprised.
I mean,
Out
we
of
already knew
every
Token
single
Rambo was coming out. They announced it like a while ago.
I don't know. It's like Vanguard having a Token Rambu collab is like to be expected as like California like Bushiroad regionals being at the same time as like a cheerleading competition. If you know, you know.
Oh, one more little piece of news. DSR. I literally,
That's
as I was
cool.
making this, I did not realize that her Vanguard is like actually very small. We have schedule, which is
I mean, we kind of expected that, yeah.
well, I think the only new
Oh,
thing to like say on this is new lyrical set.
oh
Yeah.
yeah, new lyrical set. Oh,
Uh,
and then like I think it was set 12 or 11.
set
They
11.
they have like the like a slide. We get like a new prison and like a new Leonore. But I guess we could just talk about that real quick. Prison getting a new grade 3 is kind of scary. I will say. Prison always is like very rogue. Whenever people forget about prison, it always comes back. Like it literally won the last BCS in
Yeah.
California,
Mm-hmm.
and it always really tough. Like, and when you read like the prison support that's been like coming out, like
Yeah.
it reads pretty insane too,
Mm-hmm.
and it's always like expensive as well randomly. So this getting like a new grade 3 to like hopefully go away from Pure Light is a little bit concerning because of the quality of the cards that they have. Like
Yeah.
Lightful and Citrus are two really good cards. The new one that they got in set 7 was pretty good as well. Either one from hand or two from drop. That's like a lose-lose for your opponent. Like what?
Mm-hmm.
And then Leonore, y'all are greedy. No, y'all
I
did
mean, like
not need this.
I wonder. I'm like curious to see like how impactful Leonore will actually be, considering. Well, I mean, like literally, like your worst turn in Leonore is turn 3 when you actually ride Leonore. So like, how are they gonna like fix that? And I don't think there's like outside of like strictly like restricting you from going into Vivace, like how does it just like not make the deck a little bit better?
I guess you could say it's in line with like Draw Jeweled in a way, because you know they both have a mask in like a different form.
Mm-hmm.
But let's be real here, Draw Jeweled needed
The
the
new
new
grade 3.
cards more than Leonore. Like we even have like buyouts. I've been telling everyone by this, by the way, side tangent about the blessings and Silverlight. Those cards, the F bars and or like the SRs, whichever higher rarity of them, they've been bought out and they've been sold out for a while now because of people posting in Japan that, hey guys, like Leonore Max is like really good with like this new support card we're getting in like set what, like 9 I think.
Hmm.
So like, you know, Leonore is still seeing play. I don't really see that many like people playing Draw Jewel except for the enthusiasts out there. Shout out to you, Darren.
The Dradual enthusiast, former Dradual enthusiast.
Well, he'll be reignited with the new Draw Jewel, but you know he has an uphill battle against all the Leonore super fans.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's like about it, to be honest. Like new card, like PogChamp, new cards.
PogChamp. I also included the little blurb that is supposed to tell us the reasoning behind the ban list and the fact that we're getting erratas, which is kind of weird. Makes us. I feel like we were slowly becoming Yu-Gi-Oh now.
I would say kind of like Yu-Gi-Oh's kind of like strayed away from erratating cards for at least the past few years.
Yeah.
This one, I don't know. It felt weird because like they showed this to us first before with like the ban list and the errata. So they're like, all right, guys, I need you guys to sit down. Here's our reasoning why we're doing this. And it's like, oh, so you're telling us to brace ourselves. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And I guess let's go ahead and hop into that ban list. So, of course, for our ban list, we've got another choice restriction on Dragveda, this time with Bob Sagara. Huh. Kind of funny, isn't it? We got Tektan and Solvalej. I'm just noticing now that they decided to use the promo art for Tektan, which is interesting. Moe Flash to 1. We have... What is it? I forget what that fucking blitz order is called.
Fencing Roar?
But honestly, like, the most curious one is the fact that Bell is now banned.
Yeah, like the Bell ban was like out of nowhere for everyone, because like everyone came into this expecting like, okay, we're probably gonna get a Bob hit, we have to get a Bat hit, and then everything else was kind of gravy, and nobody had Bell on their radar.
Yeah.
Like even the players, I think some people even forgot Bell existed. Like I feel like I'm one of like the only people that like played Bell still in Zorga.
Yeah, like I feel like Bell sees more play in premium than it does in freaking standard.
But the Dragveda and Bob choice restrict, like honestly, it's nice. We wanted a hit, but we honestly could have done more.
Yeah, like sure, but like, does that do anything? I mean, they did that to Shiranui, and Shiranui just like continued topping.
Yeah, because realistically, you're just playing either blue OT or purple OT. So you either just get a crit and you get like a PG back, or you just, you know, heal down and help with like the tankiness anyway. So, and even then, right, like we gotta remember that this is OT. It's still, you know, 1 in 50. So like there are a lot of games that people have like played against Bob, and OT hasn't been like a factor. Sure, you can say that, you know, OT was like in the back of their minds, and like, you know, that could influence your guarding, but more than not, it wasn't like a factor in the game. So
yeah, and I think like just one small note to add is like that. Like I mentioned this in my How to Beat Bob, that the deck does technically like deck thin a lot, and it goes through the deck pretty quickly, so it does have like a slightly higher than average, you know, ability to hit it, assuming it doesn't just draw into it, which I guess is like also a factor, but
I mean, I guess like the defensing roar is also technically, you could look at it as like a Bob hit, though that is just like a blanket like Dragon Empire, you know, hit all around.
But I mean, like,
Which, I don't know,
with
it's
Dragon Empire decks
good
were
in a
even
sense.
playing Defensing Roar like outside of BoV. Like Defensing Roar just kind of became the slot in after they lost Vylord. But like, what else was playing Defensing
Yeah.
Roar?
Shiranui typically plays Defensing Roar.
Mm-hmm.
Virgilla decks have been
Oh
playing
yeah, that's a
Defensing
new
Roar.
upcoming
Pretty
one.
much like a lot of decks are just like, if you don't know what to put in, Defensing Roar isn't, that bad of an option to just slot into your
Yeah.
deck. Everyone like, fixates on the I can bounce over trigger. This is like a 60k guard using like a regular trigger or like, usually it's like going to be like the front. So it'll be 30k just bounce about the front. And then there's also the application that people use as well with like, reusing rear guard. So you just intercept with like,
Yeah.
for example, like if I want to intercept with like a Yuma shot in Bob, I can just then bounce it back to then call it again to give it the
Yeah.
5k and draw 2 again. So
Yeah.
like it does have like a lot of application.
But I guess we can talk about bat hits. Tech 10 and Salvo. Is that what you would have preferred?
Well, okay, so with the bat hit, everyone expected Moe Flash,
Yeah,
banned,
I'm not even
or
gonna mention.
to 1.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like that was like I think most people were like okay with that, but in the few games that I have played against Bat,
Mm-hmm.
the Savoed like Tectian interaction is kind of like caught me off guard because like I went into like, oh, I heard like Bat was good and like it was like toxic, but then I was like, okay, yeah, Moe Flash, but then this interaction was also one that like kind of caught me off guard because obviously they're playing as many orders as they can. They're playing the research order. They're putting the Tectians back in, and then they put the Savoed, or even if they don't put the Savoed into the order zone, they can just naturally call it from hand and then get the Tectian discarded.
Yeah, just immediately proc it.
And not only that, putting it onto like the board too, right? Because
Yeah,
like
just,
it's like a 15k.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like just being able to like cycle through your deck to try to fill up as many orders as you can for the Moe Flash. So like the Moe Flash was like fine, but like there would have been still some people that coped on that just because I think the Tecti and Savoed interaction is pretty strong. So it now being choice restricted, I think this is kind of just like, okay, Moe Flash, a lot of people are gonna drop it. Putting this choice restrict is just like a nail in the coffin for Bat. So technically speaking, you could still play Bat. It's just that your high roll now has to really be a high roll. It's not as often anymore.
It basically puts Bat to the same place it was before it got the new support.
Yeah, which honestly, good. Like we don't really want like this interaction. Yeah, but like I don't know. Like going back to like the Bob Sagra hits, like like Drug Beta is like a problem, and that's kind of just like an issue with over triggers in general.
Yeah.
And well, like this choice restrict is nice. It would have been nice to like maybe get something else, like maybe like Yugma shot to like 2,
Yeah.
Where like
I think
I don't know.
would
So
be
like
appropriate. Cindy just does
Cindy
way
as
too
well.
much. Yeah, Cindy does way too much.
Yeah, I don't know. Like this was like a slap in like the wrist. So, like the top 2 decks, arguably, right? If you're going into like a BSF or a teams, it was typically Bob Sagra, El Glima, and then like a flex spot.
Yeah.
Well, they just nuked the deck, and then the other deck kind of got like a slap on the wrist. Like I said, like nothing much changed. Like, oh, like we lose out on like a Vanguard restand, so we lose out on like another triple drive with crit. But then that kind of just replaces it with like either they get back like a a perfect guard or like a piece, or they just heal 1. So overall, like it doesn't change too much with how the deck performs, but I think everyone with seeing the bell, we come to the consensus or the community consensus that like either this new Storkea deck, was it non-nuclear, has to be like so busted or like works with this.
But I think it's more than just the fairy girl. I think it has more to do with like other things that they may have in the pipeline. And I think the last thing that I want to say about the choice restrict, as an archetype player, what do you think of the Tech 10 self edge?
That didn't matter.
Yeah,
to be honest,
I'm like,
because archetype didn't really play Tech 10 to begin with.
Yeah, because like you only play 4 orders, right?
Finding torrential wasn't that big of an issue, so like archetype gets off like scot-free. Now archetype has other issues, but like that's besides the point. one thing I will say as well though, like a lot of this is a lot of like chatter about this ban list. We gotta remember that English, we haven't even gotten the first ban
Yeah,
list
we haven't
yet.
even gotten
So
the
we haven't
first one.
even gotten the Veilor one or like the restriction between like what was it? Like the Rezaio hit.
Yeah, and then Charmnet and I think they gave Shoujo Doji and Izasao back. And they also gave the
Yeah.
Gandiva grade 3 back, right? They put it to 2.
Yeah. So we haven't even gotten that yet. So like I know people are like, oh yeah, like most of these hits are good, right? But it's like when are we even gonna get these hits? Like are they even going to,
Are they
we
gonna
gonna
impact
get
the
this hit?
BSF season at all?
Yeah, like when are we gonna get this? Like, will we even get this with the next update, right? Because I can conceivably see like a timeline where we only get the first hit. Like, but which is kind of stupid if we only get the first one, and so we're just one ban list behind.
Yeah,
But
which is typically the case.
yeah, so just like yeah, this applies to the Japanese side, but like for English and global, it's like when are we gonna get this? Like, will locals like moving forward play with this like list? Like, because most of the time, right? Like, people would be like happy just to be like, oh yeah, like back got hit. But if you're going to like a regular locals, most of the time anyway, people are gonna gentleman out. Like, I'm not gonna play bat for locals. But yeah, that's besides the point. I think a lot more discussion actually, besides the ban list, is actually on like the erratas.
Oh yeah.
So
whoa, what a great segue to our next point.
Oh my god.
We got some erratas. So I guess we could go over it. So we got Gather Upon Me and Nectar of Sensationalism. Basically just both got the same errata, which is you have to either have a Zorga grade 3 in your Bride deck, or you have to be on a Zorga.
Yeah, so first off, I want to say, as a Zorga player, this does nothing. This just affects every other Stoicheia deck.
Yeah. And I mean, like, I mean, at one point, I don't really care too much because, like, pretty much every Stoicheia deck that was playing this was kind of, like, cheesing with it. Like, you have fucking Tree that played both these cards. You had, like, Cristianos that would play this. But, like, literally, these cards were just used to patch up holes in bad Stoicheia decks. Though the one, like, collateral damage from this, I think the biggest one, is honestly just Veleno. Because Veleno definitely needs Nectar to kind of close thing out. And without it, it's kind of just like a defensive deck that can sometimes do 4 to 5 attacks.
Yeah, although like Nectar also impacted, what was it, Night Rose as well. So they could easily recycle it back with Embargo, and they would use that to also, pressure as well. So that way, if they do it on their actual Night Rose stride turn, it's a lot more deadly because they have to deal with 5 attacks, but 2 of them have crit. So like that. But yeah, you are right. Like most of the time, right, when we see like a topping Stoicheia deck, so think of like Levidross or Leonore, they aren't really playing these cards to begin with. It's mainly just like the middling one, and that's kind of like, well, was it even worth it to hit that? But they do go into discussing why they did these erratas. So.
And I'm literally just thinking back on Gather Upon Me. Literally 2 collab decks have used that card and just like abused it. Dude,
Mushi King used it against me today.
Fuck Mushi King, bro. I hate that shit. And the other was just quintessential quintuplets, which I guess we'll talk more about, which is why I think that these cards are kind of stifling the design, I guess, a little bit, but I don't know.
Yeah, like a lot of people are complaining that like this kind of just restricts like deck building in the sense that like, well, like I thought this was like a cool inclusion, but now it's kind of like for example Veleno, right? It's like, well, now I can't play this in Veleno. I have to play the Veleno cards.
Yeah.
But that's also kind of like get into the question of like, well, what do you consider generic and what do you consider not for like?
Yeah, like what's allowed to be generic, and like what kind of skills can we have on generic skills if you're just gonna like fucking do this and just re-errata cards? I believe we have one more errata, that being the rule update that Black Wings and White Wings will now only be active if you are on an Celestial Vanguard.
F Nathan. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's all I'm gonna say. I think literally our locals, like everyone just came up to him and was just like, "We saw this hit, we immediately thought of you." Charmnet's like biggest defender.
Yeah. I mean, like, I guess this is like another future proofing. Like, giving every single lyrical deck that can play high five and that one grade 2 the ability to, like, theoretically just recycle Persona rides, or in, like, Charmnet's case, recycle PGs, definitely is annoying. But, like, I think the fact that right now the only deck that's doing it really, like, well, being Charmnet, is, like, punching down, because, like, that's like a B tier deck.
Yeah, like, but you know that does go into the discussion about like future proofing, right? Because like people are like, well, only one deck is doing that. Well, you know, yeah, only one deck right now is using like white wings, black wings. But you know, as we see with the release of High Five, right? Like Nathan's been like playtesting, Charmnet for like the past like months, even before High Five came out, his paper rarities at locals, and like we all got to see like firsthand. It's like, oh wow, you get to just put PGs back into your hand. Like it was a cool interaction, but it's kind of just like, is it that good to be able to recycle PGs like that? Like to be really defensive when
Yeah.
Charmnet's all about like hitting high numbers.
Yeah, it's like, oh, this is cool now, but how long is it gonna be before there's a deck that literally that's the straw that breaks the camel's back on this strategy? All right, finally into the PDF. So the first part is, I feel like they do this every time, where it's like, they just talk about things that have high usage. Bob Sagara, Bat, and then Virgila, which is, yeah, okay. Well, we don't have the new card, so Virgila does make sense. Apparently, it's a really good deck. I haven't read any of the cards.
It is.
But I'm going to assume it is a good deck.
It is a good deck. I've been slowly prepping for the card's arrival. Yeah, it's pretty good up there. It's like one of those like decks you would unironically consider for like your BSF slot.
Yeah.
Everyone's using Bob. It's like, okay, we want people to stop using Bob too much. But yeah, pretty much like this is just saying that like, oh yeah, here are the decks that we're like keeping an eye on. And I will say, like, them keeping an eye on Ava is kind of funny, because like a lot of people at the same time discount Ava but don't, in a way. Like it's weird how people perceive Ava. It's like one of those like eternal decks in my opinion.
Yeah, like it's also a deck that just like sneakily just keeps getting supported, and like even though it doesn't get a lot of direct support. Like it got like one set order, but there's like so much indirect support that Ava just keeps getting to make the deck better.
Yeah, like my teammate Steven, like he just one tricks the deck, and he was an A slot for me or our team in BSF, and he had like an okay time, right? Like yeah, people are saying like Ava's fair and all, but it can like still hold its own, and like I think he told me that most of his losses were just because opponent checked OT.
Yeah.
Which, it's OT.
Yeah,
that's like a separate
that.
issue. Dude, I will say though, also Astacion, we don't really have it here, but from what I've heard, Astacion's like usage has been going down ever since like, people like kind of figure out like, oh, let's just play like Sacrifice class, or if you're like playing Dragon Empire, let's play Flame Bombardment to like always like attack it or something.
Yeah, so, and it's literally just like, well, basically they learn how to counterplay the deck, and unfortunately with Astacion, once you counterplay it, the deck just falls apart.
Yeah, we don't have it here yet in English, but I will say I do have a playset of Flame Bombardments ready. So
another deck that the one that surprised me the most is that Shiranui is once again on the watch list. Shiranui is one of those decks that does have a good Astacion matchup, because you can literally just dominate and like swing everything into the token. Makes me wonder if that's part of the impact, but like, just fuck Shiranui, go away. I don't want this deck around
anymore. like sorry playtester Ryan, but like oh man, like it feels so weird to be like, oh yeah, like they already get like multi-attack for, you know, dominating, and then they get restandard. Like, I know this is like old news, but like just keep in mind I came back after like a long break. So like playing against Shiranui more like recently, I'm just like, why does this deck have restandard?
So explaining the hits, let's go through them one at a time. So we have Drag Veda and Bob Sagara, and their explanation is that when you drive check Drag Veda, Bob Sagara gets to attack again with 3 drives and 2 crit, which is often game winning on its own. You know, especially if you're in BCF top 8 and competing to see which team is gonna go into the top 4, and your opponent checks it on first turn 3.
I will say that when I checked it, it wasn't necessarily game winning, but it really helped me stabilize as well as take cards away from, you know, you. But
You made me use 2
yeah, but you can
PGs.
also say that you can also kind of say that a lot about just like OT in general, right?
Yeah.
Like obviously drag beta restanding like a triple driving like Vanguard, right? It's like, you know, whoa, plus 2 crit, whoa. But like, you know, checking OT is also, you know, a big impact as well, right? Like, you know, checking blue OT, it's like, oh, here's like a crit, and then let me just get back like Persona Ride or a PG, or even just like, you know, red OT, just getting like another like multi attack in. Like, it's those are often just like game winning on its own. It's just drag betas, you know, a step above. Which,
Yeah.
you know, it's kind of weird. Like, yeah, like Boss Saga needed a hit, but like this type of hit is kind of just more so about like OT than like just Bob in general, right?
Yeah.
Because you can kind of say this about like, you know, a lot of decks that have like you can say this about like Vermilion, right? Doesn't Vermilion get like a crit or something?
Yeah, he does. He has 1
Yeah,
crit.
so like you can just say the same thing. It's like, oh, when drive checking drag Veda, Vermilion will attack again with 2 drives and 2 crit, which is often game winning on its own.
Yeah.
Like this type of hit, like it isn't specific to Bob Sagra. It's more so because Bob is, you know, the best, one of the best decks of
It's
the
literally
format.
just the best deck, and it can take advantage of just like a really good card.
But yeah, overall, this is kind of just like a slap on the wrist. But
Yeah.
you kind of know that like they're not gonna really hit OT. So at this point, it's kind of like, do we just ban drag beta, right? But like,
Yeah.
I feel like they just don't want to like just blanket ban drag beta.
Yeah, especially
then,
like
obviously
like a set 1 card.
Yeah, because obviously, you know, it's like, oh, like even if we ban drag beta, you can always use, you know, the like blue OT, like the
Yeah, you have
elemental
options.
OTs. But you know, if you just blanket ban like drag beta in particular, that kind of just goes into like, well, why don't we just ban, you know, like Eldo Breath, right? Because like,
Yeah.
you know, doubling power and crit, that's often game winning as well. But again, like I mentioned earlier, like this type of hit is mostly just a slap on the wrist. It's more so an issue with Overtrigger as a game mechanic, but they don't want to touch the game mechanic. Which,
Yeah.
you know, at this point, it's kind of just like one day, hopefully, but today it's not that day.
Yeah. So the next ones are both for Elaglima. Moe Flash to 1. This card places multiple set orders to be chosen by Elaglima, whose ability can use multiple times per turn. Scars goes to 1 to limit the number of times Elaglima can be used. And then basically the interaction you were talking about before. Salvide, add Tech 10, pitch Tech 10, triggering its ability. Made easy by torrential research.
Yeah, because then you are always just playing either Ava or Archite Ride line, so you're always gonna get 2 torrentials. You can easily just be like torrential 1 gets the Tectian that you discarded for ride deck, by the way. So you already did like a top check 5, and then you do it again to put like I don't know, like a Savoed, for example. Or if you have the Savoed in hand, you can just call it, get the Tectian back, and then do another top check 5. So, you know, this interaction is, I will want to say, like, pretty unhealthy, I would say, just being able to go through that as well. But then again, fat is just generally unhealthy.
Like
I will say, it is really funny that, like, yeah, obviously, the Moe Flash is a hit to, like, El Glima, but this also is a hit to the El Glima, like, Ava deck.
It's literally
which like looked to like turbo out like 20 research orders. Don't use bad skill and then just ride Ava to reverse stack your deck. I do think that part is kind of funny, but you know, for the greater good, I will say, you know, Moe Flash to 1. It would have been better if it was at, you know, 0, so like, you know, just straight up bam. But you know, I guess they wanted to keep like El Leglemma as like a deck in general. Just having the 1 It's
Mm-hmm.
like fine, I guess. Like you still have like the pop off turn, I guess, but there's no longer where you could just be like, oh, I'm gonna Moe Flash, and then I'm gonna review like 3 to 4, or maybe up to like even like 7, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
orders, and a lot of them are just drawing. So you just refill your hand. You're often gonna draw like Moe Flash, but you're also gonna draw orders again. So that does stop that line of play. So 8 to 1, it's fine. Deserved. I would like it to go to 0, but it is
Yeah.
what it is. And then Tech Team to Savo it, like yeah, this technically hits like every deck, but more specifically for Bat, and it also just hits like the consistency of like getting the orders into hand for the Moe Flash to begin with as well.
Yeah.
That's another thing like why. So overall, like these hits, like outside of like Bob getting like a slap on the wrist, they are good hits. I will say
Mm-hmm.
that.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, these are as interesting as like the reasoning why they talk about future card development, which
Mm-hmm.
we'll get to right now.
Yeah. Whoa, great segue into our last little discussion point. So, this is probably gonna be like a big section. So the reason some of the cards were restricted and the erratas is that we're talking about designing cards in the future. So defensing roar, we talked about this a little bit earlier, being able to return your over trigger to the hand multiple times across one game, giving it more defensive capabilities. Because like honestly, when you guard with over trigger, that's like a really tough attack to like actually hit over. Like most decks right now, despite the fact that we're like hitting pretty big numbers, most of them don't hit like consistently over 60 with like multiple attacks. Unless you're talking about Bob on a high roll.
Yeah, it's usually also like very late game, like let's say like stride decks too. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
most of the time, the fencing roar plus over trigger is kind of just like a perfect guard in and of
Yeah.
itself, unless it's like oh like so let's say like on average, like let's just say like decks will hit like your Vanguard will be a 33.
Mm-hmm.
Typically, with a over trigger at 63, that's like 3 to pass. So like if they get like an extra check, sure. But like put the 10k, so it's like a 60k
Yeah.
shield.
And
It's
you
like
do have to like
really just
literally,
like
even if you do have 3 checks, like you literally have to hit on all 3 of them, and you have to like go balls to the walls, throw them all on Van too.
yeah. So it's pretty much just like over trigger or must
Mm-hmm.
if you use it on Vanguard. But like it is kind of like a really strong interaction. But
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of like if we're restricting it, why is this restricted when as we're gonna get to like a little bit here, like there are a lot of some cards as well.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. So I
I
guess we
guess we'll move
can.
on to Bell then.
Yeah. We'll finish up the ban list with sleeve tugging bell being restricted because it returns all cards from the bind zone into drop, making it impossible to have cards in Stoicheia that just have bind as the cost.
As a lot of people are saying, like, oh, it's because this upcoming Stoicheia deck that Ruka uses is probably gonna interact with the Bind Zone, which fair enough. But I will say this is a pretty sound, you know, explanation as to why they're banning it. They do want to try to experiment more with like certain costs. Like, let's just say, like, oh, they have like a card that gets like, I don't know, let's say 20k in a crit or something, or it can do like, let's say, like an extra drive on like the rear guard circle. But then at end of battle or end of turn or something, it binds itself. You can't really use that if you had Bell because you can just put it back in and
Whoa, you're
then
literally talking about Alpin. Crazy.
yeah. Stoicheia, like myriad ways to like call cards from like the drop zone as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, and once you see one Bell, you'll typically just see it like
Yeah.
you have access to it in general. Like I will say, like currently, outside of like premium, you only really see it in Zorga, although very like sparingly. I think like myself and like one other person like play like Bell in Zorga still.
No, what I was thinking is the fact that we've been seeing this a lot. We were literally just talking about card, but the fact that Bushiroad is doing a lot of effort to fix order cards, and in my opinion, the best way that they're fixing them, which is making it so that you don't even have to fucking play them from hand, because literally having orders in hand in this game is absolutely garbage. Like the fact that your orders are once per turn, like it's so bad. So I think the way they're trying to fix them is once again by turning us into a Yu-Gi-Oh deck where it's like all your spells and traps banish themselves from the graveyard instead, which I think is very cool. Like, the ones we have are a little cringe because they're not in Stoicheia, but like the fact that Bell exists means that Stoicheia cannot ever have an order card like that, because you could literally play it, call Bell, put it back, and then you can literally just play it every single turn. Personally, that is my theory as to why they're banning her, because they want to make cards that can activate from the drop zone like that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, we have things like, Fire Regalis, right? That removes itself.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously it's like a Regalis piece, so you're only allowed like one in the deck and only to use it once.
Yeah.
But then I also remember, like, High Five just came out and it binds itself too. Like, imagine like if Lyrical had like a Bell, right? Where you were able to High Five and then like call a Bell out and then put the High Five back in.
Especially if you're playing like Chris Rain or Leah Schafel, where it's just free.
Yeah, like, which is, at the end of the day, this, as like, as I out of a nowhere hit this might be, it is, good that like they are addressing this, because like what a lot of people aren't really like talking about is like everyone's like, wow, this is like out of nowhere, like, and like this is probably because of the new deck. But it's good that like Bushiroad themselves have like identified like this card that like pretty much nobody was talking about. Nobody had this card on their radar. And the fact that Bushiroad like took the step to like actually be like, hey guys, like I know nobody, like I know this isn't a problem now, but we're gonna hit this right now because it could be a problem later, which I think overall is good. That they at least told us why they banned it. Like, imagine like they banned this and like they didn't say, we're just left to speculate. Like, yeah, it's probably just good because of the red line.
So I guess let's go to the next one. So the reasoning behind the Gathering Upon Me is by combining with a deck that uses orders, you can easily triple drive in multiple decks. Not official triple drive, remember that. This is significantly narrowing the scope of future development, so it will be errataed.
Yeah, because then this one is also kind of like anytime they would have to, make a deck that relies on orders, so, not just Zorga, but like Veleno in some cases.
I feel like a lot of Stoicheia in general just relies on orders.
Yeah, and also kind of just like any sort of like, this stops them from making any sort of like Vanguard centric deck, because we did kind of see it in a way. Like I experienced this like again today with Bushi King, with it being to restand its -2 drive, but because they got 1 drive from the Gather Upon Me, they still have the 1 like drive check that they can do on their restand. So yeah, I can see why like this is like in particular is kind of questionable for like Bushiroad to keep around for like other decks as well. So like limiting it to like just Zorga, like it does hit the creativity of it, but like I'm gonna hope, right, like that they're gonna release like new cards, like better generics that are like more balanced in a way.
Yeah, like we're just speculating right now, but like Bushiroad could totally be like, oh, we're just re-releasing, like, this card is essentially the same, but like everyone can use it, we just like tone down the power.
Yeah, I will say, I think the Nectar one's kind of funny, because like for English we got it as like a reprint for our promo pack, but whatever.
Yeah, so I guess let's go ahead and just hop into the Nectar, since we're just already talking about it. This card must be taken into account when designing any deck that can restand rear guards. So it's narrowing the scope of the future development.
Yeah, because like for the longest time, Stoicheia is kind of just like a multi-attack deck, but like in the sense that like it's like small numbers and like not restanders. So it'll just be like, oh, like this card will attack, and then like this card will attack again. We see it with Magnolia. That's like the prime example for this. And then a lot of times for Nectar, it's kind of like anything that like restands itself, it's kind of is problematic. Like the 2 places where like it could be used, it's mainly used in Night Rose, but Night Rose does call over because on their
so they technically can't use it twice.
Yeah, and then in Zorga, it's just kind of like awkward timing because you always want to like call out either Roaming Prison Dragon or the Abomination, and those come out after you resolve your order, so that's
Yeah.
also kind of awkward. And like we touched on earlier, these two orders are mainly played in like middling decks, right? Like
Yeah, that's
not you're never really gonna see them in like the top tables per se,
mm-hmm.
but it is kind of like, well, in this case, right? And let's say like let's just think for a moment. It's like, well, are these two cards only going to be played in like middling like Skorkea decks in the future as well? So I get where they're going for, where it's like we don't want to like let's say like they make like a deck in the future where that wants to like focus on like a Vanguard restand or something using
Mm-hmm.
like I don't know, let's say plant token like for that the Grand like retrain, let's say theoretically, right? That they
Grand
like
Fear
restands
Retrain.
or
It's
like it
called
restands.
Estacion, bro.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, let's just say this hypothetical like Grand Field retrain, right? It does something where it's like, oh, Vanguard restands, or like it restands like the plant token, the big one that it like makes.
Mm-hmm.
Like it can become a problem there. Yeah, so like it's kind of nice that like they didn't outright ban these cards because like they're not really ban worthy,
Yeah.
right? Like +1 drive, like yeah, that's like cool and all, but like
I mean, most of the
you
time it's
lose an
literally like
order card.
it's not even a plus to get like your because you're discarding and you're basically going -2 to go like +1. It's like it like pretty much breaks even most of the time.
Yeah. And then like the last one, the funniest one, White Wings and Black Wings rule change. No written explanation. So we're just left to speculate.
It's like this like you're not allowed to have white wings or black wings unless you as a vanguard have wings.
Well, I will say, like getting more into like a discussion like point on it, it's like why are some cards restricted and then other cards are rotted, right? Like for
Yeah.
example, let's take the fencing roar, right? Like the fencing roar, they point out that this card is too good with overtrigger. They specifically mention overtrigger, so
Mm-hmm.
they don't mention anything with like effect fronts or reusing rear guard.
Yeah.
So why can't they just post about like an errata where it's like, oh, choose a card without sentinel and without overtrigger, but they haven't
Mm.
done these like type of cards before. I think like I was talking to what was it, Mei Changu about it, that there was like a like dark states like what was it, like a blitz order. Let me see, this blitz order came out in, I believe, DZ set 4. So like obviously, the fencing roar came out like earlier, so they kind
Mm-hmm.
of learned that. But it's like, why is the fencing roar getting this restriction when Gather Upon Me and Nectar are getting erratas, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, why is one a ban or a restriction, and then one is like requires like an effect change?
Yeah. I guess
Yeah,
they're just gonna
it's
keep printing except OT onto literally every single card they design from now on.
I mean, yeah, they should, right? But like, it's also like, get into that discussion again. It's like, well, you won't have to put except OT if you had just
Yeah.
banned OT.
If OT didn't
But
exist, if you didn't call it Frog the Jam, you wouldn't have to write except Frog the Jam.
yeah, another thing too is like a lot of time there were like talks about like, so recently in like the Yu-Gi-Oh community, right? There was like uproar about Time Wizard events using like modern card text, which pretty much means erratas, right? And how that fundamentally changes like things. And I do agree with like some of the points that they brought up over there, where it's like, we don't like to keep erratas because unless it's like actually necessary, where it's like, hey guys, this card was supposed to have like a cost, or this card was supposed to say like,
Yeah, we're like it's straight up
Reziel.
just like misprinted.
Yeah, then that part's fine. It's a
Yeah,
correction,
yeah.
right?
That's
But
literally
an errata, it's kind of just like, oh, like it's kind of like a failure in design in its own way, right? Where
mm-hmm.
it's like, hey, like we could, this is impacting like design because we didn't have the foresight to think about this.
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of like would we rather, like, let's say like the non-clear card, right, or the deck, let's say that it, outside of Bell, right, let's say it could also use Gather Upon Me and Nectar, right, like extremely well. Let's say like it's like
Yeah.
Bob levels, like batshit insane, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like, would we have wanted it to be banned, right? Like if we had like a deck where it's like so overpowering that, like, do we want these two cards out of the format in general, or do we want some decks to still use this?
Mm-hmm.
Right now, we don't care too much about Wandering Souls or Nectar, because again, they're only really used in like Stochea Tree, Claudine, just like decks that aren't really seeing that many tops at, like, the competitive circuit, mainly just like local decks.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, okay, like, do we want to wait for a deck that could really utilize these cards?
Yeah, like one thing that I was also thinking about is like going back to Yu-Gi-Oh! It's like, do we want Vanguard to become like, if you ever looked at the fucking Yu-Gi-Oh! Ban list, there's like a bajillion cards on it. Do we want to just like keep adding cards to the ban list as they become broken and just like kind of have to leave them there, or do we want to like, because like Bushiroad is always just like super liberal with their bans. Like I feel like most of the restrictions we've gotten in standard up until now have at least been eased at some point. Like literally our first restriction list, like everything that was on that restriction list is now like completely unrestricted.
Yeah, I will say this is that part is kind of like a discussion about how a card game is ran in general, because a lot of times the reason why Yu-Gi-Oh has that big of a ban list is because it doesn't rotate.
Yeah.
And every other game it either rotates, or, in Vanguard's case, we've rebooted, right? Into
Yeah.
like a different kind of like Vanguard. It's still, Vanguard, like the essence of it, but different mechanics and whatnot. So, and they've already stated that, we want to stick with overdressed,
Yeah, we
or
wanna
like
stick
D
with
standard for like the foreseeable future. We have like this like 5-year long plan commitment to it. So over time, like, we are probably gonna see, more hits on our ban list in general. Like, hopefully, we don't get to that point. But,
where it's like literally
it
all these
is,
old cards.
yeah, it's just like older cards in general. But we'll see how it goes for like new ones. Especially like, I'm really curious on how this non-clear like deck works, or what it even does, right?
Yeah.
So like, imagine like, they're saying like, oh, Bell, right? It makes it impossible to have cards in Stochea that have bind as the cost. Okay, and then they release non-clear, which has nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
And it's kind of just like, and it's kind of just like, well, what was even the point of hitting Bell then, right?
Yeah.
But overall, like, I do think that them like sneaking in, not necessarily sneaking in, because like, they presented it, but like them talking about future card design is, in my opinion, a good sign that they are paying attention to, like, hey, like, we think this may be a problem. Like, we may not see it now, right? Because like, this was like announced like earlier
Hindsight.
in like the morning for us, right? Yeah, like hindsight, right? But like going to like, because we barely touched on it, like White Wings and Black Wings, we talked about how, like, the grade 2 can like, oh, recycle PGs and recycle Persona Rise, right? And that's using like Charmant, which is like, a good like B tier deck, I would say, right? Like a tier 2 deck. But then like, imagine we get back to like a tier 1 lyrical deck, right? That could like not only like have the capability, like, imagine if Bob Saga was in lyrical, but they could also randomly get PGs.
Yeah.
And like Persona Ride. So it's kind of like, okay, like, no one else was kind of like concerned about White Wings, Black Wings, but it is what it is. Although I will say, I do agree with some people as well that like, this does kind of hinder like, deck building creativity, right? Because like, you know, for the past month we've been watching like Nathan. He's just been playing like One Trick and Charmant, and it's
Yeah.
like, wow, like I never even considered this, right? And it's kind of
Yeah.
cool that like you use like another like thing, because like in like you know Yu-Gi-Oh they have like engines and packages like all the time, so that's
Mhm.
like commonplace. Whereas like in Vanguard we don't really get that. It's
Yeah,
really
like the
is just
closest we
cookie
get is
cutter
like
and
Caterpile.
yeah, and even then, like Bushiroad has like some issues with Caterpillar, more specifically Saragon and like you know Reziel. Oh, and also Luard. I kind of forgot about that as
Whoa,
well.
Luard, your favorite deck.
Hey, yo, shout out to Luard. But yeah, at the end of the day, though, like there are obviously gonna be like some positives and negatives to this. Like
Mhm.
we're all people, the community just tend to be like negative in general because of change. But you
Yeah.
know, hopefully playing like you know, not necessarily devil's advocate, but like hoping for the better. Like
Mhm.
this helps Vanguard overall, because like you know we are getting like you know more generic cards, right? Like I
Yeah.
believe it's like set 9 or 10. I think it was 9 that we got like the new grade ones that like
Oh
combine like the
yeah.
two.
Those cards are like
Yeah.
insanely good. Like
So yeah, and people that are complaining. By the way, people that are complaining about that, I think it's okay to power creep a card from set one. I
yeah.
guess except for
I
gold.
always yeah. If it's that one we can definitely power creep that.
Yeah, but I don't know. But overall, like I think these changes are kind of for the better, right? Because
Yeah.
like another thing too, like the fencing roar, the people that like complain about it, right? We also don't forget that people like every time we get like a new event, right? Like people like, hey guys, here's like what topped at like WGP or like here's like BSF. Everyone's like, well, Dragon Empire took up majority of the pie chart again. So, you know, at least you
Just
know this
whenever they
hits it
allow
like
Dragon Empire to be good, it's never a fun time.
yeah. And that's not again, that's not to say that Dragon Empire still isn't good, right?
Mhm.
Like yeah, Shiranui loses its like, you know, defensive capabilities, but it's still like a pretty like solid deck, I would say. So, you know, they will need to adapt.
One thing I was thinking about, like I definitely do like your positive attitude, and I feel like people don't give Bushi enough credit, but I feel like they've done a very solid job at standard. Like we've literally had presentations where we don't get a ban list. Like there's always some things that people want banned, like sure, but like most of the time they do a pretty good job of just like creeping out these bad or these cards that are like not as fun with like something that's like slightly more powerful. I do that. I definitely like the power curve they've been going with pretty much through all of standard. And it feels like it's been consistent enough to the point where like huge ban lists are not necessary.
Yeah. They do typically, you know, tend to like try to their answer is kind of like just power creeping in
Mm-hmm.
general. But it's kind of just like it's like an issue where it's like, oh, like I have issue with this unless it's like my favorite deck, right? Because
Yeah, there's a lot of that.
because it's like you know the people that are happy about Basaga are like the people that like you know like Basaga from you know back then as well,
Yeah.
right? So it's kind of like as long as like more decks are able to compete, like if
Yeah.
it's not like a 1 or 2 deck format, if it's like
Mm-hmm.
relatively open, then that's generally like really good as
Yeah.
well.
And I feel for like most of standards lifetime it's been the case. Like we've had maybe 2 3 tier 0 meta, and even like in those metas it's like it's not like oh you can only play this, but maybe it's also has to do with like the fact that we have team formats too.
Yeah, although I will also like say that like in terms of like cards that are like not necessarily cards, but like decks that are good in the format, it's kind of like do we want to like ban these out or do we want to like raise everybody up? Because like a lot
Mm-hmm.
of people are talking about like, well, Bomb is like, you know, not necessarily the gatekeep deck, but like this is like the power level that we want decks at, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
people are talking about the new Heart Luru deck, right? That deck can compete with Bob. Like, is that necessarily like a good thing that you know we want decks to be this strong? Also, I do feel like a lot of people's like complaints with standard are mainly come down to like the deck building like portion of it,
Yeah.
right? Because like, what's the point of having nations, right? At least with these cards that are designed, they're all generic.
Yeah.
Usually, I guess except for like White Wings, Black Wings, but like that they didn't have like the in hindsight, right? It's like, well, I guess you could get cards in like the bind zone, so it's kind of also like, well, do we want it to be like a cookie cutter, like
Yeah, do
like
we want
like
Bushiroad
you
to
play
like
for this,
feed us decks and exactly like how to build them?
and they're like still like some like deck building stuff as well. And just like before, like about a few days ago on Twitter, people were like talking about like, hey, like there's like this build up deck Kaiser that uses like black in like the ride line to get camera in order to proc Muna, and that's pretty cool too. But then again, like we thought like the White Wing Black Wings like interaction was kind of cool. Like who knows if like Bushiroad like deems it enough to be like, we're okay with this.
Yeah.
But I will say, like, for the health of the game, I think most, if not all of these, are generally positive. So overall, I will say, like, this is pretty good. Like, in terms of like the ban list, we were hoping for like a little bit more, but I give this a solid like 8 out of 10.
Yeah. Yeah. Me too, honestly. All right. So I think that's gonna take us to the end of our discussion.
What? I do not want to be associated with that deck any longer.
Too bad.
And not because my mind blanked on what that card's name was. Errata. There. Oh my. Don't keep that. I can't believe my mind blanked on Errata.